Hello viewers, today I am going to talk about airplanes. Now, since the beginning of time, man has always dreamed about attaining the power to fly into the skies, into the clouds. Perhaps go see and find the many gods that are supposed to live there. And there was a man who did come close. During his time, Leonardo da Vinci had created many flying machines. Of course, they haven't necessarily been tested, but he created many. But the real breakthrough came in at the dawn of the 20th century, that the Wright brothers successfully flew their airplane for an extended period of time and distance. Sure, it didn't stay in the air for that long, but it was a start. That's when flight was born. That's when flight truly became possible. So, how does a plane fly? Well, a plane needs lift, and without lift it won't fly, and lift is in the form of wings. So, what happens is that everything on this planet has weight, and weight is attributed to gravity and mass. So, in simple terms, if there's enough lift, then the object will fly. There has to be more lift than the weight itself of the object, and then it will fly, in simple terms. So, no wings, no lift. There are also many other terms that, well, I must discuss. So, from the leading edge of a wing to the trailing edge, so from the front to the back of the wing, there is an imaginary line. It is called the chord line. And the purpose of the chord line really is just to keep your wing centered. That's all it is. So when they're building it, they make sure they build it straight. You know, it's a straight line. You don't have curved wings, do you? And there's also, when you're flying a plane, there are four forces acting upon it. There is thrust, drag, weight, and lift. And if all of these four forces are in equilibrium, then you have flight. Pretty simple to understand. And then, once you have flight, because anything that flies will have a thing called drag. Anything. The drag will always be double. So if you're flying at 200 miles an hour, the drag will be doubled to 400 miles per hour. That's why it takes considerable engine power to make a plane go 200 miles per hour, because the drag is always so much more. Of course, there are ways to reduce drag. There are ways to streamline the wings, sweep them back, sweep them forward. And of course, that cuts through the air much nicer. It's like when you're cutting meat. You have to use the proper knife. Otherwise, it won't cut properly. You have to use a fillet. You have to fillet the meat, right? A nice sharp, skinny knife, not a cleaver when you're cutting filet mignon, for example. And when a plane is flying, of course, level, say like this, then, of course, there's always wind. Let's just say the plane is flying like this, or like this, like that, any which way. That is called the angle of attack. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with fighter jets or the military. It is the angle at which your plane is being attacked by the air. So if you're flying at a 45-degree angle, then the air is attacking you approximately from that same angle. Of course it's doing it from underneath, but yes. And with that, there is also something called relative wind. Relative wind is when you can see an example of a flag. Let's just say there's a flag, just any flag, a Canadian flag mounted in the ground, and there's a 5-mile-per-hour wind gust from the east. So the flag will blow east. Okay, that makes sense. Now let's say there's a flag, but it's moving, so it's on a car, ship, something like that, for example. And then the flag, depending on the speed of the wind, if what it's sitting on is moving faster, then it would of course blow the other way rather than with the wind, because there is more speed generated on what it's sitting on if it is moving. Now there are also very many things that you're not supposed to do. Obviously you can't consume alcohol and fly, that's very dangerous. You can't give blood and then get into an aircraft right away, that's dangerous as well. You need to wait at least a day, maybe more, depending. You also cannot scuba dive. Why? Because when you're scuba diving, nitrogen starts to build up in your body. And when you're in a plane, the pressure imbalance will cause the bends, which are little bubbles that form around your joints, which can be extremely painful and even fatal. And I don't think anybody wants that. There's also, of course, vertigo, nausea, the simple things that can be attributed to flying. People can feel sick. Motion sickness is another one. I'm sure a lot of us get that when we're driving as well. Now, there is also something called the angle of incidence. The angle of incidence is the angle to the ground between the wing and the ground. Because most aircraft crashes happen with people impacting the ground most of the time. That's why it's called the angle of incidence. Most people die by hitting the ground. Now, air travel is the safest form of travel in the world. You will not have to worry. It is the safest. There really aren't that many crashes of airplanes. There are more car crashes per year than there are plane crashes. Much more. Now we can walk through the basic maneuvers of a plane. So there is pitch, so pitch up, pitch down. Then there is roll, like this, like that, and then there is yaw, which is a snake-like motion. So if you look, it's like this. Da, da, da. Imagine a snake. That's what yaw is. And I can walk you through the basic parts of a plane. Here is the prop, the engine, and the nose. And then here's the wings. Here is the ailerons, which is right there. Right here. Ailerons are right here. And here are the elevators, right there. And here's the tail. And this is the fuselage. And here's the cockpit. And here's the cabin. So those are the basic parts of an airplane. Why they are called what they're called? Well, some of them make sense, but some of them do not. But yes. Now, when you're sitting in the cockpit, there are, of course, instruments. Many different instruments. And as confusing as they may seem, they're really not that confusing at all. So you'll have your rudders at the bottom, and you will have your steering column, you'll have your compass, your altimeter, your fuel gauge, your speed gauge. It's not really that difficult because I guess it is in some senses driving a car. The steering is, at least. Not entirely, but at least. Flying, as I said earlier, is the safest form of travel in the world. The only two things that are the most dangerous when you're flying is landing and taking off. Landing and taking off. Two most dangerous things. But I'm undergoing ground school currently. And I'll be doing it for 6 months, and then I can take my private pilot's license exam in about 6 months, and I need 10 hours of flight experience to take the exam as well. So yeah, it'll be great. Now, let's get back to the wing. Now, the wing has a shape. Every wing has a shape, and that the curvature of the wing is called a camber. And the camber is important because it depends how curved the wing is and how the air will obviously hit the wing. And there's also these type of wings, which are long, and there is a more wider, shorter wings. They're about that much wider, and they're much shorter. So wide angle and small air angle wings. Of course, the plane I was showing you is a Cessna. It's not, a jet. But even with all planes in general, it's the same basic idea. You have to focus, maintain speed, and obviously you can't stall, because this is stalling angle. Because eventually the plane cannot continuously fight gravity and you will stall. For stalling practice, you need to be at least over 2,000 feet. And of course, during stalling practice, you practice how long it takes you to get out of a stall. How long, how quick you are at responding to a stall. So, yes. Thank you for watching, viewers. Thank you.